The gate to the loom core was not a door. It was a seam, a silver thread stitched into the wall of the spiral's foundation. Valian touched it gently, and it unraveled. The air warped. A tunnel opened, woven not of stone, but of time folded over itself. Together, they stepped into the thread line, and the spiral city disappeared. They entered a circular chamber lined with clocks. But none moved. Each face bore not hours, but moments that never happened. A mother who never returned, a song never sung, and a version of Ares who ran away instead of rising. The air pulsed. You must let go of the lives you did not live. A voice whispered from nowhere and everywhere. Eris felt tears form, but the lion stood beside them, steady. They nodded, and the clocks cracked, dissolving into threads of light. A spiral staircase hung suspended over nothing. Each step behind them vanished once taken, a metaphor made real. Sela stumbled once, panicked. If we can't go back, then we choose forward, Eris whispered. The lion leaped ahead, landing with grace. The stair obeyed certainty. Doubt made it disappear. Together, they walked as one, until the stair became thread and passed into mist. At the center of it all stood the ancient loom, tall as a tower, spinning thread not into cloth, but into realities. Its spindles trembled. One glowed with the pattern of the spiral city. Another, a world undone. A third, a single child, dreaming alone. And at the center was a pulsing core, a seed of light wrapped in iron. The dreaming's heart, sealed long ago. To reach it, they had to step across the weft path, a shifting web of threads that rearranged with their thoughts. Each step forward summoned illusions, memories, fears, versions of self. Valian fell to his knees at the sight of his former comrades. Screaming accusations. Silas was swallowed by shadows of control. Eris stood alone on a cracked bridge, as every part of her whispered, "You're not enough. You're not real. You are just someone else's dream." But the lion stepped forward, and roared not sound, but truth. The illusions shattered. Finally, they reached it. The sealed dreaming. A sphere of light behind threads of time and metal. Eris raised the key of unbinding. It hummed in resonance. One by one, they each placed a hand on the loom, and it began to stitch them into the dream itself. Their thoughts became pattern, their memories became thread, and the spiral began to tremble. The loom stilled. The threads paused mid-spin, glowing like constellations in a sky that had never been. In the breathless silence that followed, a circle formed around the dreaming's core. A moment outside of time. No more tests. Just one truth. The dream would become what they chose. Valian spoke first. "I once served order, absolute, cold, and unyielding. I believed control was mercy. But I see now. It was fear dressed in gears." He looked toward the others. "Let the dream remember freedom. Not the freedom to dominate, but the freedom to choose, to falter, to forgive." Sela stepped forward. "I was a blade. A lens, a lie." Her voice wavered. "I want to build what cannot be measured. Friendship, mystery, art." She reached out to touch the loom. "Let the dream remember wonder. Curiosity without fear of collapse." The lion placed its paw upon the core. Its voice was not sound, but a golden hum that echoed in their bones. "Let the dream remember instinct. The truth that roars before language. The wisdom of fur and fang, not to harm, but to protect what is sacred." The loom responded with a low pulse, ancient, approving. Eris closed her eyes. They saw every thread they'd carried, every life that might have been, every path they didn't walk. And then she saw the child they once were, sleeping beneath the broken sky, waiting. "Let the dream remember gentleness," she whispered. "Not as weakness, but as the seed of stars." She reached into the dreaming, and offered their name. Not the one given, the one she chose. The core began to bloom. Light spun outward in sacred spirals. Their shared choices wove together, into a pattern not of dominance, but of balance, of wildness, forgiveness, beauty, wonder. The dreaming began to wake. There was no sound, only light, only silence. only the slow dissolution of all that had been. The spiral city, the loom core, the gears of the clockmakers, all suspended like motes of dust in amber. Time bent inward. Thoughts no longer moved in lines. Memory softened into symbol. They floated in the in-between, not asleep, not awake, but becoming. They saw the remnants of the old dream. The towers of control built from fear, the mechanisms that measured every joy, and the silence of wonder crushed beneath order. They saw also the glimmerings of the new, a child offering a flower to a shadow, music blooming from forgotten walls, and clocks turned to gardens. The lion lay beside Iris, his head resting on her shoulder. Celis drifted nearby, curled like a leaf on a tide. Velian stared upward, watching galaxies thread themselves together, not as maps, but as poems. No one spoke. There was no need. Here, even breath was part of the story. A presence moved through them, vast and gentle. Not the weaver, not the dream, but the threshold itself. It asked no questions. It demanded no answers, only this. Will you carry it forward? Not power, not perfection, but the seed of what they had made. A dream born from choice, from brokenness, from love. They each whispered yes, not in words, but in the way light bends to dawn. And so the silence ended, not with noise, but with music, soft at first, then rising, a symphony without conductor, without center, without end. The threshold opened, and the new world began to breathe.